So, I've talked a lot of bad things about the New York Jets offense, really their supporting cast around Sam Darnold. I think that they've done a pretty poor job, actually, of giving him some assets, some things to work with. And I think last season he had the worst supporting cast in football. I think bad offensive line and bad receivers, just not a good combination. Robbie Anderson was fine. He's really more of a number two guy than a number one guy, but not a terrible player, but definitely not someone that should be carrying your entire receiving core. And so, I do think that through the draft, they've done some things that are, they're trying to improve that offensive side of the ball. They didn't do too much in free agency. They did do some, but they're really trying to do it through the draft, I think. And I thought they did a pretty good job with their first two picks, if I'm being honest. I really liked the Becton pick. I mean, I like just getting a tackle in general. I probably would have gotten Wirfs instead of Becton, but honestly, either way there, I think that, I like both those guys. I liked all four of the top four tackles. So I definitely thought that made a lot of sense. And then what they did was with the 59th overall pick, which was their next pick, they selected Denzil Mims, which I thought was pretty, actually, really good value. I think Mims has first round talent. I think this guy could potentially even be like a number one receiver someday. And the fact that they're getting him late in the second round, this is one of the better value picks. I've talked a bit about some of the real steals of the draft. In my opinion, I thought that Tampa Bay getting Anton Winfield Jr., I thought that was a pretty good value pick. I think Chase Claypool with the Steelers is a good value pick. I even think Jalen Hurts is a good value pick, even if it's to a team that doesn't necessarily need a quarterback. But I think that getting Mims here with the 59th overall pick, you can make an argument this is the best value pick of the draft. I think he's a really good player. And let's just get into the film study, and I'll talk about what I like about him so much. This first play, it's gonna be a go route, and that's the first thing I want to talk about is what he can do with these deep routes. He's just one of those guys where he's just a big receiver, 6'3". He can definitely move, and he's someone that can definitely be very effective on a play like this, where it's gonna be a go route. And that's where he is on the field. He's going up one-on-one against that defender right over there. He's going to be running deep. And look at what happens right when the ball is snapped. And really what you notice is that his opposing defender is going to quickly turn his hips to the outside and start running deep. And you notice even though he does that, Mims already is a little bit further deep. And this doesn't look like it's necessarily wide open, but it actually kind of is. Because, again, you have to keep in mind, not only is he a little bit further deep than his assigned defensive back, but he's also 6'3", so he's much taller. So not only do you have a little bit of leverage, but a little bit of that leverage mixed with just being a much taller guy makes things a lot easier. And watch how it makes it for a much easier throw to make. He is able to make the grab. And that's the kind of thing where, height can definitely make things easier on a quarterback, especially when it's a tall guy who can move like Mims can move. And that is something that I feel like Darnold has kind of been missing for really his entire NFL career, is someone who he can just sort of throw it up to and trust that he can make a play. That's something that Darnold hasn't necessarily had. I think Darnold has gotten a lot of interceptions by trusting his receivers, and his receivers showing why you probably shouldn't trust them too much. So I think that Mims could just have a huge positive impact for Darnold. And so, if he's a big guy who can run deep, kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Mike Evans type in that, tall but can also just burn down the field very well. Sometimes you have to prepare for that. Like you see right here, it's a little bit blurry, sorry, but you see that the assigned man that's going up against him is already bailing. The ball was just snapped. He's already trying to get back, which is, it makes some sense given the fact that Mims can beat you over the top so well. But now at this point, right, a little bit later on, you're going to notice that he cuts a little bit further in, and because of that initial bail, there's just nothing you can do. And when Mims does cut in, he's just easily open. And again, it's a relatively easy throw. He makes the catch, and Mims even has the balance to stay upright and get into the end zone for a touchdown, and that's difficult in its own right. Also, of course, just, a misplay by the defense, but at the same time, give him some credit, made a very good play. And I think that's kind of, that play was almost more so just a setup from him being able to run deep so well. As, when you can run deep, that can set up other things, and it makes it very difficult to play defense. There's really no perfect way to play defense against him, which is why he can be effective. I mean, you can't just bail instantly, because then if he cuts in, then he can definitely, get wide open. you also can't try to make sure that you just totally go far deep. Even if it is a go route, he can sometimes beat you that way. And if you try to use the sideline as a weapon, well, then this can happen. Where, they kind of say use the sideline as an extra defender because obviously you can't run outside the sidelines, so you can use that to your advantage if you're a defensive back. Like right here, you see that defensive back is going to sort of turn towards the sideline and push Mims in that direction. Notice how that's what he's going to do. He quickly turns in that direction and is going to keep pace with him. So now at this point, he can't see the ball, but for Mims, he's close to the sideline, and there's not really a ton of room for him to try to make this catch. The disadvantage of this, of course, is just simply with the fact that you can't see the ball if you're a defensive back. But the advantage of it is that for Mims, he doesn't have a ton of room to make the grab. And, the idea is that typically it's you have to make sure you throw the ball over that defensive back. And if you throw it too far over to the side, then it'll be out of bounds. So it's kind of a tough balance and a tough throw to make. But at the same time, for a quarterback, you can kind of just throw it up to Mims, and he's able to just reach up, jump up, and make the catch. Because, again, that height is so key. I know I keep talking about the height, but I think that's probably what makes him so good, is the fact that I don't think Mims is maybe necessarily as good of a receiver as he has been in college and as he will be in the NFL. I don't think he would be as good if he was 5'10", but he's not, so let's not pretend he is. I mean, he is 6'3", and he has speed, and that combination allows him to be able to really do a lot very well. I think some people kind of have the same fear they had of DK Metcalf, of like, well, he doesn't run necessarily a ton of routes. His route tree isn't totally complete as some other guys' route trees are. But at the same time, as we've shown with Metcalf, it's a lot easier to teach a guy a third move than to teach a guy to be 6'3". So I think that this is definitely something where, he's such a good athlete, and especially for his, his height, his weight, or not weight, but his height and his speed pair so well together. I do think that he can be a really huge asset for New York. And I do think he can cut pretty well as well. Like this play, it's going to be a cover one hole play. Typically, I've just been showing what his assignment is. I'll show the whole play for this one. Cover one, that's going to be his route. So, he's cutting over the middle. But keep in mind, the middle of this field is going to be covered up. There's defenders all around there. So basically, he's going to have to get open before he gets kind of to the hash marks almost. He's going to have to get open relatively quickly. That's what he's going to have to do right here. But that's also going to be exactly what he does do. And watch how he does it. Where right when the ball is snapped, he quickly cuts to the inside. And that allows him to get open and be able to make the play. That first step of getting to the inside, it's then a lot easier to cut in. And again, because of his size, you can't really attack him at the line. So it's kind of like you're damned if you do, damned if you don't against Mims. And it's so difficult to really try to find ways to beat him, try to find ways to slow him down. And I do think this is going to translate to the NFL. I think it's going to be, obviously there are some big corners who can play with him more so in the NFL than in college. But at the end of the day, 6'3" is tall for the NFL. And, he's a tough guy to push around. He definitely, without a doubt, can move. And I think that, again, it's a lot easier to teach him a third move than to teach a lot of his yards did come from pretty simple routes. No doubt about it. He's not the most exciting route runner. He's not Julian Edelman out there. He just isn't. But at the same time, I think you can teach that kind of stuff a lot better than you can teach just his speed and his ability to go up and make catches. He's not just, keep saying he's 6'3", but it's not just 6'3". I mean, he also goes up and gets it too, which makes him really just such a good 50-50 ball guy, and that's something that, again, New York just hasn't had for the longest time. He's somebody that in the red zone, I could easily see you throwing a fade to him and him being able to convert on those types of plays very frequently. I can easily see that happening. A lot of guys just haven't, Darnold just hasn't had a lot of guys who can do that type of thing. He is somebody who can do that type of thing. I think that definitely this draft was a step in the right direction for the Jets, I think. I think Mims is going to be actually really good. I think he's, they keep talking about this being a deep wide receiver draft, so getting one in the second round makes a lot of sense, and he could definitely be a very good wide receiver for the Jets. That's just what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What do you think of this decision? Do you think this was the correct decision by the Jets to go out and get Mims? Do you agree with me that could be a big steal, or is this just kind of a solid second round pick selection. I think it's a really good pick. That's why I like it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.